Hello everyone, this is Virendra Singh from toolsqa.com. I welcome you to our next tutorial on control statements. In this tutorial we will talk about the iteration statements. Now, as you must have seen the previous video, you would remember that we talked about the selection statements in the previous class. We covered if-else, we covered if-else, else, and then we covered the switch case. Now let's move on to the iteration statements. Now iteration statements help us execute same set of statements again and again till a particular condition is met. Now this condition can be retrieved at the runtime or could be a predefined condition. So let us just see with an example, and then we would have a better understanding of it. So I would just remove everything here. I would remove these things. These are from the previous class. So let's say I want to print numbers from 1 to 100 on the console, right? So if you remember that our print statement that we use is number 1 is this system.out.println, and this is how we typically print something, right? We say system.out.println and we print whatever we specify in the bracket. So these two statements will print these two string values. So let me just run it, and you would see that the two values are displayed, 1, 2. Now we have to repeat this till 1 to 100 is displayed on the screen. Now writing so many print statements, it's futile, because writing 100 statements to print 1 to 100 would be a very big task, plus it would require it would be a fixed program. That means it will only print 1 to 100, but our requirement is that we print a number from 1 to 100, and we might have a need in the future where we can change the print sequence. We can change it to print 1 to 20 instead of 1 to 100. So let us see how we can do that. Let me just declare a variable called x, and let me just give it a value 1, and I would say number value is right. Then I would like to increment the value by 1. I will use the self increment that we discussed in the operators class. Then I will print the value again, right? So I will repeat this till I reach 100 or whatever the number is, but that is not the right way to do it. Let me run the program, and you will see that the value printed are number value is 1 and number value is 2. Now instead of writing so many statements, so many print statement, we can use a iteration block. We can use a iteration statement. Now this iteration statement will let me execute one or a group of statements, group of program code again and again till a condition is met. So the very first statement that we will discuss about is the while statement. The syntax of a while statement is this: while, and then there is this opening and closing bracket, and after that there is a opening and closing curly brace. Now whatever is inside this will be executed iteratively, like continuously, till the condition which is mentioned here is met. Now whatever in this opening and closing brackets come, it should be a Boolean expression. It is something similar to the if statement that we discussed in the previous video. So let's say I want to I have a condition that print till x is less than equal to 100, right? I will want to execute whatever is inside the block till x is less than or equals to 100. And inside this block I will simply put system.out, and I will say the value of value is, and I will print X. Right. Now let's see what does it print. If I just run this statement, you would see that it is printing 1 infinitely. Now you would see that it is printing 1 again and again. Now the reason why it is printing 1 is that X will always have a value 1, and it will always be less than equal to 100. Now what will happen is that program will be stuck for an indefinite amount of time in the same while block. It will keep on executing this again and again, right? So the right way to program this would be, I would increment 1 just after I'm done with whatever I wanted to do with it, with X. So right now I just wanted to print X. I would print it, I would increment it by 1, and let us see what the program displays now. Look at that. It has now printed from 1 to 100. Right. It has printed 1 to 100. Now with this simple while block, we have printed 1 to 100, and we have just used 2 statements. Instead of writing down the print statement again and again 100 times, we have just done it using 1 statement. Now let me give you a generic syntax of the while block. A while block, while statement does while statement looks like this: a Boolean expression, and after that opening and closing curly braces, and your code block. Right. So whatever you want to do here would be printed here, or would be executed again and again till this Boolean expression is true. Right. So this is one form of the while statement. Then there is this another form of while statement, which comes as a do while statement. So I will just remove everything here, and I will write it down. We are using a do while statement. Now how does a do while statement works? The syntax is like this: you start a do block, and just at the end of the do block you specify the condition. You say X less than equals to 100. You say this. Once you do this, whatever is inside the do block will be executed again and again till this condition is true. As soon as this condition goes false, the do block will stop. So let me just write the same stuff again. Now before I run this, I will just show you what the output was in the while loop. It started with 1 and it ended with 100. Right. So let me just run this loop again, and you will see that again the loop starts with 1 and ends with 100. Now this is another form of the while loop, do while. You specify the condition at the end. Now this loop is different from the previous one in the sense that whenever you want to start with executing something and then check for a condition, this loop is good. And if you want to start with checking the condition first, let me just write the loop again. Right. This is how it should be. Right. So this is the while loop. What it does, it checks for the condition during the start of the loop, right, during the initialization of the loop. And in the do loop, it checks for the condition at the end of the loop. Right. Now these loops are a good way of iterating over the same code block again and again based on a condition. Then we have this another loop called the for loop, where we can have a deterministic number of iterations over a particular code block. let me just give you the syntax of a for loop. For loop is something like this. For you let me first give you the syntax. You say for variable condition post condition, I would say action on post condition, and then your opening and closing curly braces. Now in this you would get your code block, whatever you want to write, right? So with this understanding, let us write a for loop. Before I write a for loop, I would write the while loop again, while or do while, anything, you can look at anything. So I would say that our while loop looks something like this, right? And after that I did the increment part. Now this part was done within the code block, right? This part is important because if I don't do this, this condition will never become true, right? If I don't change anything inside the while loop, this x will never increase and it will always be less than equal to 100, and this particular code will go into an infinite loop. Now this increment is inside the while code block. Now in for loop, everything goes, whatever is your iteration logic, it goes into the for syntax. Now for loop starts with the for keyword, and it starts with a variable first. You can say int x equals to, sorry, x is already defined. I would say int I equals to 0 and I less than equals to 100, and then I say I plus plus. So a for loop looks something like this. First you initialize whatever variable you want to use as the iterative condition, then you give the condition till which the loop should run, and then you increment the variable, right? It is something like this. I used x in the while, x was initialized outside the while loop, right? And then I incremented x, and here I checked for a condition. Similarly in a for loop, you initialize a variable here, you check for the condition, and you do that post condition increment or decrement, whatever you want, right? So this is a basic syntax of a for loop. Now inside this I can just print something. The value of I is, I can say I, right? I would remove this while loop for the time being, and I will run this statement, this code. You will see that again I got a similar output. Look, it started with 0 because I initialized it with 0, and it moved till 100 till I had a value of 100. Now you would see that it started with 0, it checked for the condition, and then it incremented I. So this is how a for loop works. Now for loop, it's not necessary that you initialize anything here only. You can simply do it like this and it will work. This will also work. You can even say something like this, and you can just skip this part, and this will also work, right? This will also work. So there are a couple of ways of writing a for loop. Now I would request you to just go through the for loops, the while loop and the do while loop, write some program and try to understand what they mean. With this understanding of do while and for loop, I will close this class and I will come back to the next section in our control statements, which is the jump statements. Well, I think I should cover this in this class, in this video only. Jump statements. Now jump statements are inbuilt Java statements which allow you to shift control from one point to another point in the code, right? So let me say that let me show you with an example here, and let us remove x. Now let's say that we have in this program we are iterating over I till I reaches a value 100, right? This is the program. Now let's say I have a condition where I want to exit the loop at a particular condition. I want to exit the loop if I has a value equals to 50. What can I do? I can use a break statement. Now what happens is that, let me put a more familiar curly braces here. So what happens is that this condition, this for loop keeps on executing till I reaches the value 50. Now once I reaches value 50, this statement will be called. Now what happens when break is called? Break usually, the break statement usually breaks the while loop or the for loop in which it is present. So it will break the for loop and it will transfer the control out of the for loop. Now let us put something here. And let us run this program. So earlier this loop was executing till I reached the value 100. Let's see what happens now. You would see that it reached till 49, and as soon as I became 50, this if condition was fulfilled and the break statement was executed, and as soon as the break statement was executed, it skipped the for loop. It jumped from here to here, right? So let me take you to the drawing board and let us try to understand the break statement. Now what we had was a for loop. Oh, let me just remove this, have a better writing. We had a for loop and we wanted to execute till I was less than equal to 100, right? And this was the for loop. Now I had a statement called system.out, which is the system.out.println, and I printed the value of I in each loop, right? So what was happening was that till this condition was true, the program code used to run like this. It used to execute everything inside this block, and it used to come back here, and it used to execute everything again. It used to come back here till the condition was true. Now this was the usual regular for loop. Now what I did, I entered a simple condition where I said whenever I equals to 50, right, I want to break. Now what happened? So this statement was, this flow was working perfectly fine till I reached 50. Now once I reached 50, what happened is that this statement was called. Now whenever the statement is called break, it breaks the loop in which it is present. So it broke the for loop and it transferred the control out of the for loop, and whatever statement was present after this curly brace was executed. Now in our case the statement was sys out. The loop had been broken. Sorry for the bad writing today. Now this is how the for loop worked, and this is how the break statement worked. Now I hope this gave you a clear understanding of break. Now break can also be used in the while loop also. So if I just remove this, and I can say while, sorry for that, I less than equal to 100, and I can print this out, and I can again put the same condition here. If I let's say this time print till 10, and I can say that break, right? So now what will happen is that as soon as I reaches 10, it will break. Now let us see how it works. I'm sorry for that. You know, we did not increment I, so it has gone into the infinite loop. So what we ideally should do here is that we should increment I. Right, this is the self increment that we talked about. Now if I just run it, you will see that as soon as I reached 9, control was transferred. As soon as I reached 10, sorry, it was not 9, as soon as I reached 10, the control was transferred out of the while loop, and the control was transferred to this statement. So this is how the break statement works. Let me just take you to the next statement, which is the continue statement. Now continue statement, it is something like break, but it doesn't break the loop. It says that, let me show it to you with an example. Let us first remove everything here and let us run this program. You would see that the value of I is printed till I reaches 100. Now let's say if I want to print the values till I is 10, and after that I don't want to print any value. In that case I will use the continue statement. Continue statement says that whenever the condition or whenever the continue statement is present, after that don't execute anything just after the continue statement. So it will say that keep on executing the while loop, but as soon as I equals to 10, don't execute the following statement, just skip back to the while loop. Right here, just skip back to the while loop and again start the loop. Now let me print this, and you would see that what has happened here, just a minute. So the continue statement will as I discussed, it will just bring the loop, the control, the flow back to the while loop, right? So I think this won't be the right example here. I would just do this because I want to understand. We will see why I have moved system.out.println up. So here what happens is that, let me run this loop. You will see that as soon as I equals to 10 is reached, what is happening is that every time, as soon as I is reached, every time the continue statement is hit, it transfers the control back to the start of the while loop, and the while loop starts again. As the value of I is not incremented by 1, or we can say that I is only 10, it is not incremented. When I is 10, it again hits the continue loop, and this causes an infinite loop, right? And you will see that the value of I is 10 all the time, right? So a continue statement actually starts the while loop, shifts the control back to the start of the while loop, and it keeps on doing that till the continue statement is hit. Now I will just close this and I will make a small change here, and this loop will work, right? Okay, I would put it here, and let us run this this while loop. So what will happen is that as soon as I will reach 10, it will be incremented by 1 so that the value of I becomes 11. Then the continue statement will be executed, and the control will go back to while, and the condition will be checked again, which is 11 will be less than 100, and it will print the value of I, and this time this condition would be false, so we won't hit the continue block and our while loop will proceed forward. So let us print this, and you will see that this time it didn't go into a infinite loop, but you will see that the value of 10 will not be printed. If I go back up, you will see, well, it has printed 10. It will print the value of 10 because we are printing it before, right? So let me just shift system.out.println here, and this time the value of 10 will not be printed, and I think you can easily figure out why it won't be printed. You would see that after 9, 10 is not printed, because when I was 10, the continue statement was hit, and the continue statement skipped whatever was just after it, which is this part, and it moved back to the start of the while loop. So this is how we can use continue statement. Now continue statements are very less used in programming world. I don't know the reason, exact reason. Probably we don't find much use cases of continue, but we should be aware of these kinds of statements in programming, in the language. So with this understanding of continue, we will move to return statement. Now return statement is again, it transfers the control back to the caller of a function. And I think at this point in time, I'm just trying to understand return would require some more concepts, understanding of some more concepts like classes, functions, and methods. So I will skip this at this moment. Don't worry, as soon as we reach this classes, method, and functions, we would we would understand what return is. I will close this class and hope to see you in the next class. Thank you very much.